Okay, so we are going to be answering problems that ask specifically, rather than just saying find the percent, it's going to be asking for you to find the percent of change between two things. What do I mean by change? Thinking mathematically, what does change mean? Yeah, find the difference or subtract. So we're not just trying to figure out what percent is this out of this, right? Like on a test, what percent is your score out of the total? In these problems, we're asking by what percent did the value of something change, whether it's an increase or a decrease. We want to know by what percent did it change. Okay, so it's a little bit different of a question than the ones that we had been doing the last couple of days. Okay, so when calculating percent of change, the first thing you need to do is find the difference or subtract the two values that you're given in the problem. Okay, we can only compare two things at once. So the first thing you're going to do is find the change between the values. And this is already on your notes, you don't have to write this down. Okay. The second thing you're going to do then is calculate what the percent of that change is as compared to the original value. Okay, now the original value in this problem is going to be whichever one chronologically in time happens first. Okay, so if we're talking about like something happening in 2015 versus 2020, 2015 happens first. Okay, so chronologically, the original is whatever happens first. Okay, the original is also representing the whole in our setup. So after you find the change, whichever setup you prefer would look like this. The change over the original equals x over 100. Or if you were using the triangle method, the change is the part and the original is the whole. Oops, sorry. Okay, so whichever of these two methods you're choosing, find somewhere on the 6.4 page in your notes to write down this. You have it as a reference. So squeeze in there somewhere, whichever of the two methods you're using, write that setup in there so you have it to look off of if you need it for your homework. Okay, so let's take a look at an example because it'll make a lot more sense when we read an actual example. So this says, in the year 2000, it cost $7.25 for a movie ticket. Today, it costs $12.50 for a movie ticket. Find the percent of change in the ticket price. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is to find by how much has the price of a movie ticket increased from the year 2000 to today. So what is the change in price from $7.25 to $12.50? Lucas? Right. Now, anytime you want to find the change, whether it's increasing or decreasing, you want your answer to be a positive value. So if you're doing subtraction, you always want to do the bigger number minus the smaller number, because we don't want to use negative values when calculating percents. Okay. All right, so the ticket price has increased $5.25. Now, if that was the question, this is a pretty simple question to answer if I just said how much does it increase, but I want to know by what percent does it increase. So if 525 is the dollar amount of increase, when I go to set this up, I'm going to use $5.25 as my part. What do you think my whole would be if I am using well, either method really. What goes on the bottom here? Zach?
725.
Right. The original price in this case is the 725 because that's what it used to be, and we're increasing it from there. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out how much, by what percent did it change from where it started, 725. And if you're doing the triangle method, it would look like that. Okay, so now take a minute to solve using whichever strategy you are using. Just a little heads up, your homework directions say to round your answers to the nearest tenth. So let's round our answer to the nearest tenth for these so that we're doing the same thing. Round to the nearest tenth. So rounding your answer to the nearest tenth of a percent. What do we get? Anyone have an answer? 72.4%. And then we're going to, just to show that it is increasing, we're going to just draw an arrow going up just to show that it's an increase of 72.4% in price. Okay? So one thing to remember, guys, as you're doing these problems, we're going to do one more together, but the original value is always represented by 100%. So our starting value is 100%, and it's increasing by 72.4% from that starting value to get to $12.50. So that's what that is telling us. Okay? All right, we're going to try one more together, and then I will have you guys try a couple on your own. All right, last year there were 750 students enrolled at Hampton Middle School. This year there are only 685 students. What is the percent change in enrollment? First thing you need to do is to calculate the actual amount of change in students. So 750 students last year, 685 students this year. That's a difference of 65 students. So that is your part. That's our change. That goes on top. And we're trying to figure out how much does that change compared to what our original value was. What do you think the original value is in this problem? Yeah, it's 750. Because if you look at the problem, that's last year. This year is going down to 685. So our original is the 750, which is on the bottom there. So if you're doing the proportion, solve that. If you're doing the triangle, go ahead and solve that. And again, round it to the tenths place as a percent. So give that a try. All right, what is our percent to the nearest 10? Oh, 8.7%. And this one is decreasing, so we're going to draw an arrow going down. Okay? All right, things to watch out for. Common mistakes mostly are putting the wrong number as the original value, so you want to be careful. It's not necessarily just the number that you see first in the problem. You have to read it carefully. Make sure you're picking out the starting value, and don't just look at which number comes first in the problem. Okay, I'd say that's the biggest mistake. And the second mistake I see a lot is people forgetting to do the subtraction. Okay, it's not a step you can skip because that is the whole purpose of what the question is asking. It's asking for the percent of change. And if you don't find the change, then your percent is not calculating the change. Okay, so I'm going to give you, I have 4 problems, which is a lot. I don't need you to do all 4, but I would like everybody to try at least 2 of them. I don't care which 2 you pick. I just want you to try 2 of these 4 problems. And for you guys at home, you can go ahead and type in your answers into the chat, just so I know that you're there and participating. I will just kind of go over all of them, the setups at the end, just to make sure even if you didn't get the right answer, you have an idea of how to do them. Okay, so try to type your answers in the chat when you have them. And that is this one. All right, my last question is, in 2015, it cost $3.25 for a gallon of milk. In 1960, the cost was 49 cents. Explain why this percent change will be greater than 100%. Now, I don't need to know what the percent of change is, but if that helps you, you can solve it and figure out what the percent change is. But I'm telling you that the percent of change will be over 100%, and I want to know why. So for those of you guys at home, if you think you know, type it in the chat. Just otherwise think about it. I'll give you a minute or 2 to think about it, and then we'll discuss it. But if anyone at home thinks they know, type it in the chat. Why would this be an increase of over 100%? Yeah. Just saying. All right. Anybody think they know? Why is this going to be over 100%? Go ahead, Olivia.
It's because the change is greater than the whole.
Okay, if you calculate, yeah, so the answer was the change between the 2 values is greater than the whole, right? So when you subtract them, you get an answer of $2.80, which is bigger than the original value. So the part is greater than the whole. So that means it's over 100%. So that's one way to look at it. Another way, does anybody know, for something to grow or increase by 100%, what does it need to do? I don't know if I worded that the best way. If something increases by 100%, how many times bigger does it grow? Twice, right? It doubles. Do you guys agree that this is way more than double for what 49 cents is? Yeah. So if something increases by 100%, it doubles. But that's definitely way more than doubling, so we know it's going to be over 100%. Did anybody actually figure out what the percent was? You didn't have to. I was wondering if anybody did. Yeah.
It was like 571.
Yes, it actually is an increase of 571%. It's a lot of increase.